Hello and welcome to week 5 in sociology and technology, and we're taking on housing. Now I'm going to tell you that when I was putting together this material and I was looking for ways in which technology has affected our everyday life, I actually came across, the notion of 3D printed houses, along with the notion of the line, which I've been following for a few years. Now, and it made me think about like building materials and whatnot, of a field that I'm not in any way professionally associated with, but certainly I understand, that we throughout history we've built houses out of different materials, and there's a field of material engineering that focuses on housing, and different materials have different levels of green quality to them. Are they renewable at the rate at which we're going to need them? Those kinds of things. And just sort of coalesced and had a really good time looking at this history myself. Learning a whole lot about the history of building materials themselves and housing itself. Now, sociology class, so we have all that technology, and then we come back and we have two discussions that I'm having, really from that sociological perspective. The first one is the idea of your status goals, your value systems and whatnot having to do with your personal housing. Now, in people that I've met, you can maybe divide them into two categories. People who have a very, very high value system associated with owning their own house and their own property. Other people that I've met, me included, not as strong, wouldn't mind it, can't afford it. I'm renting. I rent a really nice big house, so that works out pretty well. I get all that. But not as much investment in terms of owning my own house. So, or my daughter lived in her van for a while, or being homeless, or living in a crappy apartment while you're putting your life together to move out, or maybe your life took a turn and now you're living in a crappy apartment. What do these mean? What does it mean to you in terms of yourself, in terms of your view of yourself, your status and your values based on your housing? A discussion about that. What does housing mean to you? What does it represent? What is it? It's a public face, or where you live is sort of a public face as to your status and your importance in the community, and the to what degree are you fitting in with your community, the keeping up with the Joneses at whatever level that you're at. And so let's talk about that a little bit, about what housing means to us as people. And the second discussion is to look at the different kinds of housing emerging in our world. And I, of course, point to the line, but there's all kinds of others. What are the pros and cons? And would you like to live in a place like that? Would that be, and personally, I think it'd be a great place to vacation. Let's go see how that looks, but I'm not sure about living there. We'll see. But, would you want to live in a treehouse? Why? Those kinds of questions about the ways in which we're building housing now. Some of it aggregate, communal, things like the line, things like modern communities that are being set up, and all of that stuff. Where would you like to go? Would you like to live in the ocean? Would you like to live in space? Those kinds of things. Have fun with these two discussions, really looking at housing from this perspective. First, what does housing mean to you and what makes it a home? And then the idea of what could you tolerate living in different kinds of housing? And I know my daughter had a really good experience where she went to Africa. The friend of hers that she went with is from there, and that person's family is still nomadic. They live out in the Sahara, and they live in portable housing that they bring around and they move, however, with whatever patterns they move in. And she went out and stayed with them for a while, living in a basically temporary housing, tents and whatnot, but that's permanent. I call it temporary, but it's not fixed to the ground. It's made to be carried and moved to another place. That kind of thing. And she experienced that, pros and cons. about that. There's a certain non-materialistic component to it, but there was certainly a, wow, this is a very different way of life. So very, very fun to think about how other people live in very, very different types of environments that we do. All right, so that's it for this week. So enjoy those 2 discussions where we talk about housing, what they mean to us, and where could you possibly live and still be comfortable. All right, so have a great week, get to it, and I will see you in the discussion boards.